I will not be satisfied. I genuinely will not be satisfied until Ranskai calls us a good boy. Anyways, let's just hop right in. Case wasn't clear. Yes, I have issues. I wonder why he and the valley smell so strongly of flowers. Because I always forget to make sure we do not have any penises. I delayed it by an hour because I had work. No one recalls seeing a carriage arriving in town, nor a stranger riding on the back of a beast. He simply showed up in Arwell's nest a few days after the hazeleaf was discovered. He introduced himself as Silvareth, paid a hefty sum in gold, and without a care for his fellow dragon's questions, asked to see everything on the menu. It's a wonder nobody saw him arriving in town. You really can't miss him. A dragon about as tall as Arwell, but with twice the presence. He has a hardened look and keeps his shoulders held high up. And then there's that ashy smell around him, only barely covered by incense and that peculiar mane. That last feature spoke of a mixed heritage. Judging from his fangs and the shape of his molars, I figured he most likely carried lion blood. He hadn't said anything about himself, but the moment I saw him, I felt it in my nerves that he had been sent by the Inquisition. A glance at his clothes was all the confirmation I needed. A leaf-shaped pendant sporting a dead tree over a rising sun, and the moon's pendant hanging from his wrists, both symbols of nature. Even Cadgan seemed apprehensive, looking at the dragon from the corner of his eye. He was still sampling Arwell's cooking by the time we left. I wouldn't see more of him until a few days later when rumors about the Duke authorizing the burning of the hazeleaf began circulating. A crowd gathered around the ritual site to bear witness, almost like a smaller leaf-burning festival. But instead of demons dancing around the bonfire, I arrived to find Silvareth standing in front of the ruins, head lifted, his hands joined in prayer. Oh, hello! Well, hello there! How are you? Hello there. Wolves, lions, all of you that come from faraway lands. I ask, what makes a demon? They run in opposition to nature, yes. They're soul-stealing fiends. But more crucially, a demon cannot lie. For instance, he points at a scrawny wolf in the crowd, a small grin forming in his mouth. The smaller man looks around, his ears lowered. You there! Would you beat me in an arm wrestling contest? Even a lie this obvious and petty, a demon would be unable to tell. The hazeleaf writhes with indifference as the dragon falls to his knees, raising his hand up to the skies. In his palms I see the glint of a gold coin. The heart is a most peculiar thing, so delicate. Yet, no matter how you lacerate it, it will always bandage itself with some new hope or goal. From the coin emanates an unfamiliar fire. It doesn't disturb the dragon in the slightest, even as it grows and advances towards the ruins. It is not passionate nor just, but simply a purifying flame made to consume everything that is an affront to nature. Oh! God damn! God damn! God damn! As it envelops the ruins, Silvareth stands up and turns to face us. His body is mostly a silhouette in front of the inferno. Demons, however, use the truth as a weapon to strip our hearts and reopen old wounds. They worm their way inside in search of one thing, your true wish. And I guess Hector's true wish is to get dicked down by Cadgan. They force you to look at something fundamental yet unattainable, and rekindle the greed, the ambition, and the madness to pursue it at any cost. They promise that no matter how impossible, destructive, or selfish your wish may be, they can make it in reality, even if, particularly if, it means subverting nature. I've seen families undone by demons, fathers so consumed by their obsessions that they allowed their children and spouses to starve, I've seen... He is calm and collected even as the fire rages behind him, but he hesitates. His features are darkened, impossible to read, but the way his voice falters feels genuine. I've seen a mother who wished for her children to never grow. When they protested and tried to escape, she returned them to the womb from whence they came. That is kind of fucked up. That is actually very fucked up. Not even the children are spared of a demon's temptations. Those are, by far, the most disturbing cases. A child's single truth can be naive and deranged, unassuming yet terribly cruel all at once. Their wishes are the most fearsome of all. Demons strip away the innocent lies, the selfless kindness, the sense of right and wrong that upholds a community. Their so-called truth is a brutalizing force that destroys all else. That, my brothers and sisters, is why demons cannot lie, and why their promises of truth ought to be feared. He pauses and looks back at each man, woman, and child in the crowd. Even with my attempt at remaining discreet, I feel his gaze boring into me. One day, this too will become a legend. Anywhere else, this tale would be buried and forgotten, but Renai isn't quite like that, isn't it? This land is marked by stories of demons and their exploits, after all. For the time being, I ask this of all you present here. Beware the one that would peel away your layers and speak about your true wish, because that is most certainly a demon. And look after those who cannot tear their eyes away from the truth, for they are the most vulnerable to the evil prowling your town. As the flame burns the hazeleaf to ashes, I can't help but think of how gentle it looks, almost like a caress or a hug. The vines and purple leaves crumble under that love, and the scenes and writings engraved on the stone pillars fade as they do. As for the Inquisitor, all I can make out is that the white of his eyes moving as he observes the audience once more, and this time he lingers on me, making no attempt to hide it. I remain a prisoner to his oppressive gaze until the flame, having finished its job, extinguishes itself. So that's what happened. Cadgan had missed the burning, with him being in the hospital to help care for Aaron that afternoon. In the end, I just couldn't send him home with the injuries he suffered from being thrown around by Manuel's guards. Cadgan had spent the last few days giving a hand at the hospital and keeping an eye on the forest shrine when time allowed it. Wolf takes a long sip from his mug, his eyes fixated somewhere distant. Between the Inquisitor and the expedition, I have a busy week ahead of me. Do you think he'll seek you out? I imagine the first people he'll want to consult will be the Duke and the priests. I was only an apprentice, but after he speaks with Aaron, I figure he'll want to work with me too. I wonder if that's why he was staring at me. We were eating together when he first came here, so maybe he recognized me. At least that's what I hope. Ranskai's smell isn't so thick on me that he immediately detected it, isn't it? I wonder what he's up to now. Probably scoffed the idea of that dragon trying to get in his way, but I'm still worried. Well, as long as what happened in the ritual site doesn't repeat, the Inquisitor should soon run out of leads, or so I hope. I'm still wondering about how he introduced himself. Father Silvareth. Do Inquisitors usually live in monasteries? I don't think so. I've never heard of them using a title like that. Perhaps it is a cover of sorts. You said he used a coin to conjure the fire? Yes, it must have been some sort of artifact. Never seen anything like it, though. By the way, how did it go with Aaron? He's acting tough as usual. Did any of the other doctors give you any trouble? No. Why do you ask? I don't want to worry you with this, but shortly after admitting him to the hospital, I was warned he couldn't stay there for long, and now that the expedition started again, they might want to send him back home. But why? He can't return there in his condition. Yeah, so I started thinking where to send him. Cadgan's home was an obvious choice, but with how busy he usually is, wouldn't be able to keep an eye on Aaron, and it'd functionally be identical to just sending him back to the forest. Then there's Tresa, but she's already busy raising her newborn, and I'd rather not overburden her. That only left one option. Do you know Finbar, the blacksmith? He's been staying at home since he got injured in the valley. I asked him, and he does have a spare bed for Aaron. He's like an uncle to me. We can trust him. Not that Finbar or anybody in his family knows medicine, but I can stop by to handle that. I just need somebody watching over Aaron while I'm away. I'd be very grateful if you could arrange that. Yes, leave it to me. Tomorrow I'll tell the head doctor. By the way, how are you holding up? Me, I'm alright, all things considered. I don't know how you managed to keep your cool through all this. After a moment, he takes a sip from his drink and smiles slightly. See, that face. That face right there. I love that face. Dealing with situations like this is my job, after all. It's so Jover. As I'm approaching the Baron and the hospital comes into view, so does a carriage halted right in front of it. One of those tall lion guards is carrying a crate from it and into the building. I'm curious about what he's doing, but that feeling is overridden by panic. Oh, Aaron, I hope the guards aren't coming into the main ward. Can't imagine the old wolf would react well to seeing him there. Much to my relief, upon reaching the reception, see the lion's been dropping the boxes right there. Currently talking to the head doctor, his hand on a pile of 3 crates. This is all. His Grace sincerely wishes it will be useful to you. Thank you. We will take care of it from here. With a bow, the guard excuses himself and goes outside. Not long after, I hear the beasts outside grunting and the carriage's wheels screeching as they begin to turn. Good morning, sir. Good morning, Hector. Even as I greet him, the old lion's wary gaze has settled on the pile of crates. I tilt my head at it too, curious. Did His Grace consider it appropriate to send us more supplies or equipment, perhaps? You could say that. This is his father's lab equipment. I wasn't aware he'd send us this until the carriage arrived earlier today. Although, much like me, Dad used to travel with his own tools. The Duke's mansion was much better equipped for research. Many afternoons he spent cooped up in Leopoldino's laboratory as he tried to find an explanation for Cadgan's condition. A child like me wasn't allowed there naturally. Oh, I'm sure it'll be of use. Head doctor's smile betrays some apprehension. This isn't a research facility, and Leopoldino's scientific interests went beyond medicine. We'll have to go through this to see what is actually of use to us. It may not have borne fruit, but Dad worked hard to understand Cadgan's condition back then. Even now I stopped thinking about it myself. Manuel says it was a sleeping disorder and that the anomalous prismilium readings were likely caused by something else, but what exactly? No matter how many details I recall, nothing comes to mind that could explain that. All I know is that it wasn't Dad doing something, and I don't say it merely because I'm his own son. When we arrived at the mansion, Dad had a private audience with Leopoldino. When he examined Cadgan later that day, he said the Duke was correct about what Cadgan's prismilium readings would look like. Leopoldino did have some interest in medicine, but as the head doctor said, he was no doctor. Hell, I'm not sure if he was a researcher. All I've heard is that he used to hire people to do that part for him. So if he knew that much about Cadgan before Dad arrived, then somebody else must have examined him beforehand. The prismilium readings after Cadgan fainted shocked Dad, yes. That is a sort of phenomenon one doesn't fully grasp until laying his eyes on it. Being a proper doctor now, I figure he suspected Leopoldino was exaggerating, or, like Manuel, that somebody committed a mistake during previous examinations. That'd have been my first guess. And I just can't imagine Dad was Leopoldino's first choice. My younger self couldn't put it into words, but it always seemed strange the Duke would hire us. Leopoldino learned about Dad from one of his wealthy clients putting in a good word for him, but why would the Duke rely on a doctor from some badger town rather than on his lion friends? But if he did hire his friends at first, and only turned to Dad once they failed, then it makes sense. Then there's what Cadgan said when we first met. When we were in that desolate corridor in the mansion, he opened his arms, inviting me to observe our surroundings, and proclaimed demons had scared away the people living there. And now that I'm recalling it again, I can't help but think there was a sinister meaning behind those words. It's not that Ranskyle was involved. He would have mentioned demons to spook me regardless, but maybe there were more people in the mansion and something did happen to make them go away. And those could have been the doctors who studied him before Dad. Damn it! The old Cadgan would be so satisfied if he knew his prank is causing me a headache so many years later. In any case, I'm certain other people studied him with similar results. I'm not convinced by Manuel's explanation as long as the prismilium readings remain a mystery. Well, it's too late to find the answer for Dad. Cadgan's still around, and he's not as stoic as he looks. It'd be no wonder if questions about his condition still haunted him. Wish I could take that weight off his shoulders. But I don't know if I'll ever be able to. The truth behind the cyclical lethargy has evaded me for so long that I'm not sure it's even within my reach. Whatever's in these crates is unlikely to change that. But maybe it can give me some closure instead. Do you need help unpacking this, sir? I can volunteer. The lion closes his eyes. Paolo can handle it. Don't concern yourself with it. But with the expedition restarting, we might need to work at full capacity at any moment now. Don't you think it'd be better to sort all this now? My, why the interest? I just think it'd be troublesome if all this got in the way, and Paolo has to run the reception. It'd be unfair to leave it all to him. We should split the work. The lion shakes his head. I know I'm being stubborn, but I want this. Very well. I'll allow it, since your job has been nothing short of exemplary so far. I trust you will not neglect your usual duties, understood? Yes, sir. One more thing, sir. It's about Aaron and the wolf I brought the other day. Is he ready to head back home? No, but I'll see he's transferred somewhere more appropriate for his continuing recovery. I just need a little more time to finish accommodations. Tomorrow, it should all be ready. Very well. I will leave it in your hands. After stopping by Aaron's bed only to find him soundly asleep, I help Paolo move the crates to one of the unoccupied wards. We pick one each to start digging through it. First thing that sticks out to me is the smell, musty and slightly humid. It's like this crate has been sealed and left to sit in some dark basement for a long time. I'm not too sure what I'll find. While Leopoldino did conduct some medical research, this was far from his main interest. If the Earth Helpers are anything to go by, he cared much more about finding ways to grow more crops. And once I remove the crate's lid, I see my suspicions are confirmed. Empty pots, seeds, and dead plants inside flasks, cattle anatomical charts. Manimal just wanted to get rid of all this, didn't he? I don't see how any of it would be helpful in a hospital. However, as I dig deeper, I find myself finding some interesting things. Glass bottles, torches, knives, prismalium crystals, and even brewing equipment. Perhaps the same one Dad used all those years ago. It does show some age. How many days did Dad spend in front of these glass vials, scratching his head as he attempted to understand Cadgan's condition? Perhaps he'd look out the window and see us playing outside as he was in the middle of work. I wonder, what Cadgan was to Dad. Did he see him as a poor child, a patient, or an object of research? I thought I was being slick back then, that he didn't notice me slipping out of our room to spend the night with Cadgan. Maybe he didn't simply allow it. Was he happy I found a friend in him? Was getting Cadgan to cooperate all he cared about? Dad was a kind man, I think. But I know there's nothing he wouldn't have forsaken for Oblon's sake, not even me. But are you any better, Hector? Didn't you forget all about Cadgan to jump into that demon's arms just a few weeks ago? Serves you right that the hazeleaf appeared there and caught the Inquisition's attention. I may have tried to forget, but now I know that I just can't. Doesn't matter what Ranskei offers me or how I try to justify it. The moment Cadgan gives me the slightest hit of want, the tiniest ember, everything I put away breaks out. Knowing Daddy surely kept all his research written down somewhere. Let's see. As I continue sorting through the contents of the crate, a collection of tiny leather-bound journals catches my eye. The leather is rough to the touch, and the pages are distorted and tainted by time. Open one and see the ink has partially faded in some places and become smeared in others. Most of it is still readable, however. Seems to be research on crops. It's just notes on some experimental farming methods and magic. Some of it is rather wild. There's a part about burying copper pipes beside the crops and using magic to keep them healthy throughout the winter. Did Leopoldino write this? Did he realize what a powerful wizard you need to put this into practice? Or the amount of copper you'd need? This could work for a while, but the constant stream of magic would eventually damage the pipes, and they'd need to be replaced. As I skimmed the book, I noticed the handwriting changing. It seems this was penned by several different authors. Then I suddenly stopped at a certain page. On it are the schematics for an Earth Helper, or at least what seems like an early iteration of one. A small stake that uses a modified prismalium crystal at its core. Once it's buried so only the tip is sticking out, the user infuses it with magic to make it perform a predetermined spell. It's difficult to learn to use, but incredibly powerful for such a small artifact. Leopoldino's legacy given form. With a sigh, I close the journal and open the next book. Look over my shoulder at Paolo, but he seems too busy with this crate to notice me getting distracted. I knew it. It doesn't take me long to find Dad's writing in one of the journals. The page has a recipe for an elixir, struck out with a large cross. Below is a following note. When I first began monitoring the patient's layers, I jumped to what seemed the most logical conclusion. That the outburst of life force that takes place when the cyclical lethargy renders him unconscious must originate somewhere from reason. The only layer that eludes a prismalium's eye. However, just because reason is invisible doesn't mean it never has been studied. We don't understand its relationship with life force, but whenever a patient suffers an illness that can't be explained by an imbalance within the other four layers, it follows then the imbalance would be located within reason. But no matter how many cases I study or how many experts I speak with, none of them match what the patient is experiencing. Could it be that our understanding of reason thus far is too incomplete, or perhaps even flawed? While certainly possible, I believe it'd be worth it to explore some other possibilities first. And that is the purpose of this elixir. He then went on to explain the purpose of each ingredient. The gist of it is that he suspected there might be something else invisible to both the prismalium and the naked eye in Cadgan's body, and this unknown substance would be responsible for causing him to go unconscious. The elixir, once in his bloodstream, would hopefully attach to the substance and allow its detection and, hopefully, research. Interesting idea, though it seems like a rather big leap in logic. Did he have a reason to suspect this might work, or was he desperately looking for clues? The next few pages are filled with different iterations of the same elixir. Considering all of them have been crossed out, I imagine they didn't work. If I'm right about Cadgan being examined by other doctors before Dad, then I begin flipping the pages backwards, paying close attention to any changes in the writing. Then I see it, a page penned by another hand. I throw Paolo another look before holding the book with both hands and hunching over. Slowly I inspect the page. It's a description of Cadgan's symptoms as well as a report for one of his visits. Just as I thought, their examination went the same way as ours. And Dad really didn't commit a mistake, right? What else is here? I'm about to go to the next page when my eye stops at a name near the beginning of the report. It says it's the subject's name, but that doesn't make any sense. Squinting, I read the report from the beginning this time. Immediately my heart begins slowing down until I could swear it stopped entirely. What is this? Subject 7. Name, Bedelia. Species, wolf. Sex, female. Age, 37. The subject suffers from loss of consciousness, seemingly at a fixed time of the day. While it is unconscious, the life force within its body runs rampant. However, no further symptoms manifest. Attempts to forcefully wake up the subject have been useless. It always regains consciousness around an hour later. A change has arisen in this particular subject. The rate at which it loses consciousness has accelerated, rendering it unconscious 2 times a day. The rate is accelerated again. Further observation is needed to determine the new cycle. Again, additionally, physiological changes are taking place in the subject's body. Please consult its personal record for details. And then it's written by a different hand. Is this... The subject has expired. Autopsy is not possible. I frantically start flipping through the book. Every few pages is another name. A familiar description of symptoms concluded with the same final note. Why is this here? Why is Dad's writing in this book too? What was he not telling me? And just as suddenly I stop as I reach the profile of Subject 11. Subject 11. Name, Cadgan. Species, wolf. Age, 14. Subject 11. Cadgan. Wolf. 14. I repeat it under my breath, yet it's so loud to my ears, it drowns out every other thought and sound. My whispers turn into a chorus, which then chants out, Subject 11. Cadgan. Wolf. 14. I give the pillow a good couple of squeezes before laying it on the bed. After one final glance at the room, I nod and walk up to the window. It's a sunny day today, and only a few wolves walk the road outside. It couldn't be a better time to bring Ernan in. I stop to look at my reflection in the glass. It looks terrible compared to the beautiful day outside. I barely got a wink of sleep last night. Cadgan, for once, didn't look so well himself. What if Silvareth has already begun hounding him? Or if Manuel made him run some errand last night? Most likely the former. He noticed my poor state, but I told him I had pulled a muscle moving the crates last night, and that the pain had kept me up the better part of the night. Not sure he believed me, but at least he didn't press further. It did cross my mind to just mention the book, but would that have been a good idea? Do I truly want to dig up what might be his worst memories? What little I can gather of the story told by that list of patients is horrible. I don't want to make him relive that. That's far from the only thing disturbing me. I exit into Finbar's workshop, wiping my hands. Everything looks perfect. I'll be bringing Ernan in a few minutes, if that's alright. Of course, Hector. As long as you read another chapter of my novel, that is. Sure, I can spare a moment once I'm back, although I get the feeling Ernan will take over me as your reader while he's here. You can count on it, but still, to think old Ernan is back. If only it was under happier circumstances. Are you two friends? No, but for most of my life he was always at the shrine, you know? He was sort of like a neighbor. My children used to be terrified of him when they were little, though. That frown of his precedes his exile, though, then. I take a deep breath, letting my next words stew in my mind until I feel ready to utter them. It's a tragedy what happened to the other priests. It's no wonder he resisted coming back to town for so long. Finbar chokes at the mention of the other priests and then clears his throat. Yes, well, nobody knows what happened to them. Some think the Duke had to do with their disappearance, but we aren't sure. I was worried about you and your father back then. Can't imagine the relief the first time I saw you coming back from that mansion. And did any of the others return? Finbar looks confused at first, but when he catches the meaning of my words, he lowers his face with a frown that makes him seem that much older. I heard my father took in a few guests while I was away. That's what Manuel had said. The time I asked him if his father had taken a child under his roof. Thought he was mistaken about there being more people, but now I know he must have been talking about Cadgan and his parents. They couldn't have been the only ones. There were just too many people in that book. And Cadgan is the only one that made it back. I didn't see anybody else. I know, Hector. Your dad said the same thing. Did he? Sorry, I don't remember. Oh, we didn't talk about it in front of you, but yes, I did ask him to keep an eye out for the missing people. Or any clue at least, but he came back empty-handed. But I guess I'm not too surprised he eventually told you about this. That's how you found out, right? Did something happen for you to bring this up now? His voice carries curiosity, concern, and a little hint of hope. However, I shake my head. No, I was just thinking out loud. I'm sorry for mentioning something so unpleasant. I'll go get Aaron now. The bell ringing as I open the door drowns out his words, but I don't look back. I cross my arms and glance at the ground as I walk towards the hospital. I feel wrong, as though there's something perverse slithering inside my veins, running circles in my body. Dad said the same thing. I didn't see anybody but Cadgan at the mansion, sure, and while I never had access to Leopoldino's laboratory, I seriously doubt they were keeping dozens of wolves captive there. But he must have seen that book, right? Leopoldino must have given it to him the day we arrived. I'm sure of it. That must have been where he learned about Cadgan's condition. Why didn't he tell Finbar about the people mentioned there? What else was he hiding from him? And from me? What were we really doing in that mansion? Why did all those people die? Where did their bodies end up, and why was an autopsy not possible? Let's be rational, Hector. Perhaps Leopoldino caught wind of a rare disease and quarantined the infected in his mansion. Then why all this secrecy? Why did he not tell that to the townspeople? Besides, no one ever mentioned an outbreak of some disease here. That's not something people forget about easily. Oblon would know. As I arrive at the hospital, I try to calm my breath and the shaking in my hands. Keep it together, Hector, at least until Aaron is relocated. I enter the reception to be met with a most unexpected view. All the other doctors and nurses, all my coworkers, silently waiting there. Some of them are sitting down, but most are leaning against a wall, looking towards the main ward every once in a while. Paolo looks at me and then points at the door. I swallow saliva and step by step get closer to it. The doorknob feels so cold as I grip it. I worry I might leave a cut across my hand. The main ward is empty except for Aaron's bed. There he is, sitting on his bed, both hands on his lap, but he's not alone. Well, hello there. Old Man Yowie is real. Old Man Yowie is now real! Wait, what? The priest notices me approaching, and so does his visitor. Speaking of the devil, Hector, yes? Please close the door behind you. Hector, this is Father Silvareth. Introduce yourself if you know what's good for you. Please, Elder, no need to scare the little thing. The dragon stands up and in a second closes the distance between us. He takes my hand in a firm handshake, smiling reassuringly. Ominously. I am Father Silvareth. I believe you were there while I was burning the hazeleaf. It's a pleasure to finally make your acquaintance. I'm Hector of Oblon. I'm a doctor. The dragon nods and lets go of my hand. I can't help but take a step back. Were you two talking about me? Yes, you came up among many other topics. Well now, Elder, it's been a fruitful conversation, but now I'd like to see the shrine. Your shrine. Seeing as you're in no state to take me there, why don't you act as my guide instead, Hector? I'm here for Aaron, actually. I was supposed to be moved somewhere else today. I don't intend to take much of your time. As I said, I only need somebody to show me the way to the forest shrine. That doctor will understand. He's a reasonable man. Reasonable enough to know better than to do anything that could interfere with his investigation. I seek guidance in Aaron's face, but he just remains silent, looking tense. In the end, I nod and the dragon claps his hands, making me jump. Excellent. Let us be on our way. As we leave the hospital and walk into the forest, Silvareth hums a song behind me. Constantly hearing his voice keeps me on edge. Then it stops, and so do his footsteps. I turn around to see him looking up at a tree, his claws softly caressing its bark. A most peculiar town, don't you think? I suppose, what with the valley, the legends, and all that. The dragon hums, squinting at the tree. I follow his gaze, trying to tell what grabbed his attention. Looks like any other tree in this forest to me. Then his attention turns to me. I try to behave as usual as he seizes me up. But I can't help but break eye contact. With a mysterious smile, Silvareth lowers his hand. Let's continue. Alright. This time he catches up to me. His gaze feels heavy on my shoulders. He knows! We know that he knows. He knows that we know that he knows. Everyone knows. Everyone knows that we fucked a demon. This time he catches up to me. His gaze feels heavy on my shoulders. By the way, I apologize for the rushed introduction later. I am Father Silvareth, proud member of the Order of the Red Sun. The Order of... What? Are you not an Inquisitor? Have you seen an Inquisitor's son? They usually sport armor and a worthy sword. But the Inquisition and my order do work closely, yes. What's the difference? Our order is composed of humble priests dedicated to understanding the world and concerned with making sure all is well in nature. We are men and women of God. The Inquisition, meanwhile... They are... There's his cock. It doesn't exist. He pauses and measures his words with the slightest grin on his lips. They describe themselves as decisive, bold, utterly uncompromising, problem solvers through and through. They're always so busy with other campaigns, trials, and prisoners. So busy, in fact, they sometimes invite us to come and take a look at things when they can't do so themselves. His smile, along with his eyes, grows sharper. People over and I are lucky. Had it not been available and willing, there'd be heads flying by now. But worry not, as long as I'm successful, it won't come to that. And I always carry out my duties. Why did I have to ask? God, don't let him see you're nervous. He'll tear you apart in seconds. In any case, Obla and I have passed through their small, beautiful village. It's a shame the misfortune that has befallen it. I do wonder, how does a badger from so far away wind up here? Becoming friends with a priest and his apprentice to boot. Must be a fascinating story. Your story must be fascinating too. Not at all. I'm but a humble islander, born and raised in a small port where ships would stop and resupply in their voyages. I spent the better part of my life isolated from the world, only listening to the sailors' tall tales. I don't have much of interest to share, I'm afraid. I know you're keeping a secret from me, by the way. He knows! He knows! My heart almost jumps out of my throat. I turn to see him, I bet more violently than I intended, and try to fire out a retort, but one word is all I managed to get out before my esophagus closes up. The wind, the rustling, and the birdsong around us all blur into noise. What? He grins, enjoying playing with his food. No need to play dumb, son. The elder told me you already know about that. Took an awful lot of convincing, too. As I said, I'm no Inquisitor, but I won't roast a good doctor just because he knows a little more than he ought to. Little by little, my thoughts slowed down, and I come to understand what he means. Oh! Aaron told him that I know about the Dark God! Oh, thank God! Thank fuck! Oh my god, oh my god. Yes. Oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. He doesn't know. You really won't? It'd be such a waste. You could probably save many more lives than I'd spare by reducing you to cinders. He figuratively swats away the idea, making a disgusted expression. Let's get to the point. You're not from this village. You're practically a stranger. Aaron said you used to visit, but that was a long ago. And you returned only around 2 months ago. Too late to be involved with the apparition of the demon allegedly tormenting the Duke. Allegedly, so he's not sure a demon is involved yet. Must have left my surprise show because he chuckles. Seeing as you're an educated man and know about the Dark God, I was hoping you'd be interested in exchanging ideas. There is something fishy about this demon story, and I'm hoping a different perspective will clear things up.
It's time to drink water. It's time to drink water.
He says he doesn't suspect me, but he might be trying to get my guard down. I said refusing to talk won't make me any less suspicious. And either way, I better play along. If I choose the right words, I might get some information out of him rather than the other way around. I'm not sure I'll be much help, but I can try. I just want your opinion. Perhaps you'll catch a detail if I didn't. First, let's go over the facts. What I'm investigating is the hazeleaf that appeared in those ruins. It is an undeniable sign of a dark god stirring in his sleep. But how that happened is still a mystery. The popular theory is that a demon did it. It's what the Duke believes, isn't it? Indeed. It's almost like he's been taken in by the fervor with which the wolves tell their legends. There haven't been demons in Renai for centuries. But there haven't been demons in Renai for centuries. So you are a skeptic, eh? Or the Inquisition already investigated this town before, and that's the conclusion they came to. Yes, but how did the hazeleaf show up at the ruins then? Wouldn't that be because of the Duke's prodding? It's possible, but then why is there no hazeleaf or any corruption between the valley and those ruins? The amphitheater is pretty far from the valley. I suppose it is strange for the hazeleaf to show up so close to town when there's no obvious corruption anywhere in between. I don't know, maybe somebody brought hazeleaf all the way there from the valley? I'd raise a bunch of other questions, but I doubt it's what happened. When you work in this field for long enough, you learn a pest like the hazeleaf isn't something you can just plant anywhere and it'll grow. Nature has means to defend itself. No, it needs a vector through which to break into nature, or to be close to corrupted ground. Huh, that only leaves the demon explanation then. If a demon went there and performed some perverse ritual, all the pieces would fit, yes. Except, if you were a demon here in Renai and the Duke was trying to break into your territory, what would you do? I'd drive him out, I guess. That's what everyone here says, because that's how it goes in Renai's legends. Remember, however, these are the same legends that they sealed the Dark God away with. They are a mockery, a satire. A demon, the real deal, would be quite amicable to the Duke. Demons weaponize the truth, and who yearns for that more than an entitled scientist? He'd be a great target. Anything the Dark God grants him, he'd try to make it his and spread it all over the world. Like with those silly glasses. Points to the prismalium glasses on my belt. Why, a real demon uses their finest flattery and lead him straight into the valley's heart. Which is why it puzzles me that we have this expedition that just can't succeed, and a Duke claiming a demon is tormenting him. The breeze suddenly turns, shaking the top of the trees and cooling the inside of my ears. And just as Renai has an unusual relationship with its demons, its last remaining demon has an unusual relationship with its dark god. Well, am I mistaken? Oh, no, I don't think so. Manuel, he's obsessed with his research. Can't say he wouldn't strike a deal with the demon for its sake. It truly is a puzzling situation. Suddenly, the dragon's footsteps sound much closer. Indeed, there is another possibility, however. There is? What if there's somebody besides the Duke, with greater potential to empower the Dark God? Somebody we've overlooked for their ordinary under any other circumstances. Makes sense for the demon to reach out for that person instead. Don't you agree? He's trying to imply that's what I am? No. How could I be any more dangerous than the Duke? It's absurd. That is quite a leap in logic. Of course, again, I'm just throwing ideas. It doesn't mean anything, I assure you. But now you see the conundrum I find myself in. I have two hypotheses, but neither fits perfectly.
Why can't we just skip the demon talk and fuck this guy already?
I don't know how to help you. If this was me diagnosing a patient, I'd assume I missed something fundamental and start over from scratch. Yes, I suppose you're right. Silvareth quiets down and looks away. He seems lost in thought, genuinely so. I sigh with relief when the forest shrine comes into view. Point at the shack, barely peeking out from behind the building. That's where Aaron keeps his text. He seems to care a great deal for them, so be careful. Of course, friend, thank you. I look at the dragon and immediately notice a damp spot on the side of his abdominal region. He follows my gaze and laughs when he notices it. Excuse me. He produces a handkerchief and presses it against his clothes, rubbing the dampness off. It's transparent and somewhat viscous. Saliva? One more thing, son, about the priest's apprentice. How long have you known each other? Cadgan? 11 years, why? Have you by any chance noticed something irregular about him? Perhaps some sudden change in physique or character? Well, it's been 9 years. He grew up. I mean, when you were young. I furrow my brow, actually pondering his question. Any sudden change in Cadgan? That does ring a bell. His behavior always changed upon waking up from a cyclical lethargy-induced sleep. I don't know why he's asking this, but I doubt Cadgan's mood changing as a consequence of his sickness would be of any use to him. Hell, I wouldn't tell him even if it was. No, I don't think so. Interesting. Silvareth closes his eyes and nods. I just stand there and after a moment begin walking away. If that's all, then I'll go back now. Oh, before you do, I'd appreciate it if you could think back to your time in the manor. Why is that? I'm sorry, I lied earlier. There's a third possibility regarding the demon hypothesis. See, it could be that the demon is still fulfilling a past pact. Perhaps even one with the old Duke, Leopoldino. Makes you say that? To be honest, Renai has been in my sight for a rather long time. Remember that Leopoldino conducted his own expedition into the valley? That he successfully reached its heart? Or he reached the valley's depths, yes. The Inquisition kept a close eye on him after that. They didn't know what he brought back with him, you see. However, nothing came from it. Just a few years later, he went on to invest his Earth Helpers. And lived the rest of his life as a rich, if regretful and miserable man. And that struck me as peculiar. What made him so unhappy? What troubled him when he had everything he ever wanted within his reach? This isn't to say money will bring you happiness, but doesn't it seem rather unnatural that a man so rich couldn't even find a vice? Some respite for his pain, even if temporary? He was miserable, I assure you, miserable. Aaron would be so happy to hear this. I can't help but smile a little for him. Alright, what are you getting at? Doesn't the story of Leopoldino reaching the heart of the valley and achieving success sound familiar? It's what you said the demon would do for Manuel. Exactly. What if Leopoldino did something really bad, and only now we're witnessing the consequences? That's what I'm also looking into that mansion's history. My timeline is right. You were there not long after Leopoldino returned from the valley. I want you to remember anything unusual that you might have witnessed during your stay there. You might have seen something and overlooked it at the time. I'll need to think about this. I'm not sure. Of course. We have time to spare for now. I make to walk away, but the dragon remains in place, smiling blankly, like he was expecting me to stop and ask him one last question. Say, exactly how long ago did Leopoldino return from the valley? He scratches his scaly chin, looking up. I'd say 11 years ago. Leopoldino returned from the valley 11 years ago. He smiles warmly. What a coincidence, right? Fuck. It is dark. The voices of the patrons downstairs have vanished, replaced by the occasional gust hitting the window, and the flames softly dancing inside my lamp. I'm sitting on the desk, pen in hand, tapping the piece of paper before me. It's never easy writing to Aunt Nora, but now I'm truly stumped. Where do I even begin untangling the mess that is my mind? How do I explain to her now there's an Inquisitor in town? No, it'd be better to admit that matter altogether. The same with Ranskai, obviously. Let's see, then I've reconnected with Cadgan, helped make the cure for an endemic snakebite. I'm helping Finbar write a novel. When I come up with ideas, my hand is frozen in place. I can't put any of them into words. They don't linger for long either, as my mind returns to what Silvareth said. 11 years ago I met Cadgan, but also Leopoldino successfully reached the heart of the valley. Might be a coincidence, but I can't stop thinking about it. And then there's the matter of missing people, too. Doesn't matter how much I try, I can't remember anything regarding that. But whatever happened, I doubt it was related to Ranskai, as Silvareth thinks, but... what did Dad do? What was his part in all of that? I sigh, putting the pen down and rubbing my temples. Arwell had mentioned the Duke having this museum back when I was looking into Renai's demons. That would be a waste of time, even more so after I visited Ernan. But if I just wanted to return to the mansion to look around, then... I opened my eyes, and after some more deliberation, my hand jumps to action. Am I being a fool, blindly plunging myself into these depths, when I know in my heart of hearts that whatever I find will be too terrible to bear? That is, if I find anything at all. It's been so long that any hint of whatever might have happened is likely gone. But still, I need to try. I want to understand what happened to Cadgan and what kind of man my father truly was. We set out before the break of dawn, when there is not a single pair of eyes to witness us. The birds are quiet, the trees still, the sleepless elders dare not come out, afraid of the chill. Even the beasts of burden stay back, sleeping on the stable's floor. We do not look back as the homes and streets disappear behind us. As Renai's embers fade, we have for company only the comfort of Trace's shirt. I follow the old signs deep into the woods, edging ever closer to the valley's threshold. Oddly shaped rocks and unassuming tree carvings lead away from the beaten path towards a ravine. The one safe path down is visible only if you look at it from the right angle. At the bottom of the chasm runs an old creek. I walk upstream, eyes always looking for small stacks of rocks. They lead me towards a path hidden by vegetation up to the other side of the ravine. Not a difficult height if you know ancient signs used by the priests of Renai to navigate the valley, but almost impossible otherwise. Once I climb the other side, I sit on a rock and put down the bag I'd been carrying. I allow myself a moment to think and watch the sun rising from the horizon, extending its rosy fingers from the treetops far ahead. Catch the silhouettes of birds taking off as their songs echo through the ravine. The ground is damp from a light rain the night before, and the soil lets out a rich aroma that foretells a bountiful harvest. I keep my senses sharp, sight, hearing, smell, searching for even the distant hint that we're being followed. Can't be too careful now with that Inquisitor around. The wind howls as it bounds through the ravine, and the birds here, unaccustomed to hunters, sing louder than anywhere else in Renai. Moments like these, it's easy to believe that this world is at peace. I look down at my hands, shaking, chilly, even if winter is so far. The walk calmed them down, but... anxiety, that's what Dad calls it. A fire in one's core as thoughts of 1,000 possible futures flood in, all mixed into a tangled web of uncontrollable factors. I can almost see it all from a bird's perspective. All of Renai laid bare, the valley within its infected heart, the buildings in town, people and beasts of burden no bigger than a grain of sand. In this vast board game, just what actions are available to us? How will each move impact our adversaries and their decisions, and how can we anticipate them? And in this vast conflict, what role will luck have? All this storm of thoughts coalesces into a single thorn. Anxiety. An emotion, and yet one I struggle to conceptualize. Before I could grasp the sensations it carries, it was gone. All that is left is the chill and the shaking hands, like arcane signs left by a long-gone priest. Just as I think back to the source of this emotion, the amphitheater overtaken by hazeleaf, my ears flickers. Have patience, Rion. Just a little more. No, it's fine. I was just thinking back to last night, Caddy. I really outdid myself, I think. I bet everyone in town's talking about that trap I set up. The Duke will have a hard time finding people for an expedition anytime soon. The way the guy's eyes shot up in panic, you'd think I'm some kind of monster from it. I was just hiding in a bush. What do you think? Did I do good? I can hear the smile in his voice, just as well as he can feel the weight of my silence. That delay in my response is enough to clue him in on to what's to come. Before I can muster a word or even a thought, his tail is already tucked between his legs. He tries to recede and hide under the surface, but his presence is unforgettable, unmistakable. We are two animals sharing a cage and there's no way out. Yet my pulse quickens. At the back of my head, I become aware of how easy it'd be to run into the woods and hide. Thoughts of hiding places and forgotten spells skitter. But this time I can't let it slip by. I reach down below the surface and grab him by the scruff of the neck. Rion, we have to be careful. That man, the Inquisitor, is dangerous. He doesn't dare look me in the eyes. I can feel every turmoil in him, and above them all is his fear of my disapproval. Seeing him in such a state, I can still feel a pang of sorrow. The irony doesn't escape me that I can so clearly feel bad for him, but not for myself. Yeah, that's just Rand's Kai. Rion, look at me. Things have become so much more complicated now, all because of what happened at the amphitheater. The Inquisition is not afraid of violence. They can hurt us, Teresa, Dad, Hector, everyone in Renai. And this is not part of the plan, as if we specifically did not want the Inquisition here. Keeping my voice flat and neutral takes more effort than I care to admit. Even then, he struggles and launches the first thought comes to mind. We didn't plan for Hector showing up either, and that turned out alright in the end. We can figure out a way. You're afraid of the Inquisitor finding out about your hands, right? Fear, that's what it is, right? Fear of what might happen, of Renai's streets painted in blood. I know just the way to make him think your hands work fine. It'll be all too easy if you just follow my instructions. I bet he's right. Compared to him, I lack the drive to learn magic and the reckless abandon with which he plots how to use it. I handed both of those over a long time ago. Even so, if he can pull off a trick, then so can I. But it's not what we need right now, and the handful of seconds it takes for me to think it through is enough to make him fidget again. It might trick him at a glance, but you'll be using the eye's essence as a catalyst. That'll be much easier for him to notice, and far worse for us. There would be no clearer confession of guilt than that. He'd have us executed on the spot. He looks away, but this time his presence does not recede. He grows quiet and still, and for a moment I feel the chaos underneath his surface settling down. Just as that connection forms between us, I'm assaulted by a chill. My hands start shaking again. I feel a terrible weight on my back. My eyes hurt. That is just a fraction of what he's feeling as the weight of his actions hits him. At the same time, he catches a glimpse of the game board I've laid out, and how the situation has worsened with the Inquisitor's arrival. A new player has been introduced, a knowledgeable and unpredictable one, and far more dangerous than Manuelino. Our pool of available and productive moves has shrunk to a nearly fatal degree. The reality of the situation finally dawns on him. I fucked it all up, didn't I? What are we gonna do? Can we still keep everyone safe? Is Aaron going to get better? Will they hurt Hector? I'm going to figure it out. I'll find a way. My voice comes out flat, clear, fearless. That's how he sees me. And that belief alone is enough to soften his turmoil. Enough resting. Let's move on. I give the ravine one last look, confirming we weren't followed and set off. Walking lets me push away all those dark thoughts and focus on the moment. The crunching of leaves underfoot, the sense of bark, grass, sap, and decomposition. The sun proceeds in its march. Violet gives way to blue in the sky above us. The night's chill is dispelled. In the distance far above us, a hawk calls for its mate. Closer from the trees surrounding us is the chirping of common birds. I focus on each sensation, acknowledging and naming them one by one until Rion's turmoil subsides. He does not dip back into the depths. He lingers at the edge, following my gaze as it travels across the trees in this area, examining their unique features. Close to the ground, their trunks are thick, but thin out gradually until 2/3 of the tree's height. At that point, it spreads out and forms 5 branches. 4 more or less aligned with each other, with the 5th bending further down or angling itself in a different direction. Each branch then repeats the same pattern once or twice more. Then the leaves it produces has 5 large veins, again, 4 more or less parallel to each other, with the 5th aberrant one. The people from Renai are too accustomed to the Eye Valley's oddities. They might get an impression that the trees here are peculiar, but they wouldn't be able to put a finger on why. A fresh outsider, however, from a glance, would notice that they look like arms. Each one a forearm jutting out from the earth with 5 thick fingers crowning it, which in turn repeat the same structure. They would notice, too, a pattern in these woods, that entire patches of it grow right-handed and others left-handed. There's a logic to it all. All one has to do is find the exact line where the right meets the left and follow it deeper into the woods. There they'll find the shaman's tree. Let all those thoughts linger in my mind, allowing Rion to listen to every word. Little by little, the embers of his turmoil turn cold. Can you believe it, Rion? Long ago, in the times of ancient Renai, when our people lived in the valley's heart, there existed a massive network of roots and trees. They began with a single sapling touched by the eye's essence, whose roots became so vast it began spreading new trees across the land. Just imagine it being so colossal and so incredibly old, outliving ancient Renai's golden age and remaining undetected, forgotten, utterly at peace. Reached all the way here, so far from the Heart's Valley that even if it was still connected to the original web of roots, the eye's influence was diluted on the way. After the cataclysm, the network of roots was fragmented. The eye's essence could no longer reach this far. And so today, the trees here have the aspect of the valley's innermost heart, while we're retaining none of its power. I can almost feel his weight, as though he was hanging from my back arms draped over my shoulder. With his ear aimed at my mouth, he drinks up every word, even if he already knows it. All the chaos, confusion, and grief is put to rest. In its place, new visions take shape, of a different time in the same branch of the woods, when the world felt simpler and kinder, even if it wasn't. In his recollection, all that is tender and loving gains twice the color. The shaman tree, swaying up ahead, almost seems to beckon him to its peaceful roots, to the resting place of long-lost kin. Familiar voices echo through the woods. He carries an overfilled basket of offerings, each bountiful fruit at the flower of its youth, ripe and ready to be savored. When I try to recollect on my own, they always come faded and muffled, as if I only remember how they should sound, the words I would describe them with, and not how they felt. When Rion does it, every color is vibrant, every sound specific and rich, every scent threatens to bring tears to my eyes. Part of me wants to believe these memories are mine, and another cannot forget how foreign each sensation is, as though this is but a recollection of something that never happened. If I could see my reflection of that memory, would I recognize my own face? Would there even be a person in the mirror? But even with all this doubt, I cannot shake a deep, heart-wrenching longing for this past, for a world that will not return. Even if these memories are not my own, I long for them. His hug tightens, his mouth drifting closer to my ear.
It's time to drink water.
It's nostalgia, Caddy. The lions
It's
caught
time
it.
to drink
Call it
water.
sawdade. Thank you for
It's time
indulging
to
me. It's very
drink
kind of
water.
you. You're
It's
welcome.
time to drink water.
We should bring Hector here one day. He'd like the trees. Would he? I figure seeing arms growing from the ground would make a good doctor like him uneasy. He'd like it if you brought him here, I'm sure. You could spend the day talking about bark and roots, and he'd be drinking it from the palm of your hand. You could sit together on the rock overlooking the ravine, counting the fish swimming in the river below, and he'd be as happy as if he was sniffing my crotch. That's Ranskai. That is Ranskai right there. And then you'd lay your hand on his waist and pull him in. Slip a finger under the waistband of his pants just to give him a hint. Trust me, he wouldn't mind the freaky trees. You could tell him they have eyes, and he'd put on a show for them. His voice is dripping with excitement, and I can feel it affecting my body. I can't help it. If you don't want to do it, I'm sure I could make it work. I could show him the trees and spin it in a way he'd enjoy. How about this? What if they were really the arms of colossal creatures of the valley? You know how it is back there. Beasts this large wouldn't look out of place. Or maybe they grew from corpses of the enemies who tried to invade it. I bet the ancients weren't entombing a poor fuck inside a living tree. You know how creative they were. As Rion lays out his ideas, you can't help but notice the reckless enthusiasm, how each link in the chain follows quickly to the next with so little thought to the consequences. Well, that is my fault. I can understand the way he thinks, why he is the way he is, and how to treat him. I can cherish him. And yet, I can't help but feel an icy shard of rage stabbing me. As much as I understand him, I don't have to bow down and ignore the consequences. How bitter it is that, of all emotions, rage is the one that is still truly mine. Those are some fun ideas, but after what happened in the amphitheater, it's best if we don't bring Hector to fuck on holy sites. There's no telling what will happen. Besides, it's disrespectful to the shamans. His ears droop, and I swear I can feel his tail tucking in between his legs. His tail tucking in between my legs. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. And will use protection. Good. From amidst the trees, I catch a glimpse of it. A thicker, smaller trunk, unlike any other in these woods. It is, in fact, a pair of entwined trees, two arms spiraling together with their fingers interwoven. The single shaman tree is the only one left outside the valley proper, and the single-armed trunks in this part of the woods radiates from it. The back of the left hand, bursting with vibrant leaves, rests on the palm of the right. It bears the weight of the other two, yet its lower position means its leaves struggle to reach as high. What difference does it make when they originate from a single clump of overgrown roots? All the sustenance, all they have, is shared. Besides, my true goal is not the tree itself, but what lies beneath it. Deep down the cave entrance on top of which the tree sprouted. We're here. Oh, shaman tree, welcome us into your dark embrace. The spirits I know must be observing us from the depths. Theirs is the mantle of shadow, the chill creeping up on our spine comes from their touch. A gust of air blows from the crypt, damp but not stale. Even the humidity is sacred, the shaman tree's roots, reaching down to the depths of the world, drink the purest water that no artificial well could ever reach. How paradoxical is the eye's power. The corruptive influence that destroyed Renai is the same that empowered a being to reach the quietest, most peaceful sea. War and peace made manifest. I take an oil lamp hidden in the entrance by her handprints on the wall, and try to light it despite the uncooperating wind. Rion drifts forward to my consciousness. Do you think it was a mistake? Approaching Hector, I mean. Managed to get an ember, but the chill, damp breeze blows it out. No, looking back, I should have been bolder and taken the chance when he approached, even if I was still hurt. We'd have figured it all out as we went anyway. It wouldn't have been a problem, so I can't say that your approach was a mistake. But that little trick with the amphitheater sure was. I rub my temples. You know I don't like saying it, but I told you, I had a bad feeling about it. You misunderstood your relation with the eye, much like the ancients. I know. Whether the cause for the hazeleaf was Rion fucking at the amphitheater in particular, or just him fucking at all, I cannot say for sure. But had we been more careful, we'd have figured out earlier how to use the suppression sigil for those occasions. We're gonna stop it for the ad, one break from the ads. Do your no ads dance. Still, I'm not blameless. I should have known how Rion would react, how impulsive he'd become. I was unprepared to deal with it. But no point crying over spilled milk. We have to look forward. And find a solution to this problem. There has to be a clean way out of it. Rion brushes his hand over my chest, teasing me. And there's the matter of you and Hector. You deserve love and happiness too, brother, and he does love you. Well, Cadgan, aren't you happy that in this precarious world we live in, there is someone who yearns for you? Oh, I suppose I should be happy, except it's hard for me to think of love when Inquisitor is threatening to chop her head off. But can I even feel happiness, or did it become entirely his? Well, to me, that's one more reason to go ahead and enjoy what time we have. How about... Makes a point of hemming and pawing, pretending to think. when I can easily tell exactly what's on his mind already. I know. You should invite Hector to the Great Lake Games. You won't be competing, everyone will be having fun, and you and him can enjoy a day together and get intimate at night. You can give him a nice special and go with him into the woods, take a bottle of wine, some bread and cheese, and and fuck him against a tree. Or a nice staple if there ever was one. Yeah, now there's your chance to show him how it's done. Show me how it's done. Perhaps. Come on, if you don't ask him out, I'll have to play the wingman. Don't tell me you didn't want to grab him that time in the river and shove that big nose, the big dumb nose of his between your balls. I get another ember, and this time it stays. Enough horsing around. Now it is time we pay our respects. I feel a sharp shift in Rion's tone as he drops the joke, and at the edge of my consciousness, I can notice a change in him. In a moment, he's taken over by the solemn duty of our station. I extend my right hand and he copies with the left, first phasing his hand over mine and then shifting it slightly so that our fingers entwine. We speak as one. Venerable ancestors, survivors of the Eye's awakening, heroes of a bygone era, great leaders of our people. In our time of most need we come, seeking guidance. Please, grant this air a glimpse. Our throat tightens. A spark. Rion closes his eyes, mine stay open. Of your guidance, so that our people may yet again overcome this trial. Please, grant us safe passage to your place of eternal rest, venerable ancestors. In the distance behind us, a hawk shrieks. The wind howls, leaves and branches sway. There is no great revelation, no divine intervention, no flash of sigil magic. The world, the order of nature, moves on in utter indifference. Rion bows while I remain standing, holding our lamp, gazing at the dark entrance of the crypt. Ancestors, mother, father, guard our step. Together we step into the darkness. The descent is easy. The path is wide and tall, so that even a wolf of my size can go in without any discomfort. That's why they chose it here, after all. The floor itself is even, and as we follow the spiral staircase down, catch glimpses of faded cave paintings in between the tombs carved into the wall. I hesitate as I catch rudimentary drawings on the wall. The lines are thin and inelegant, as though drawn by a child, and my gaze goes to the small skeleton laid to rest there. So small it barely fits the tomb. The shaman's tree roots have embraced it. I catch only glimpses of its bones. We proceed with our downward spiral. The deeper we go, the wilder the roots become, to a point they cover the regular surface of the stairs. I'm careful not to trip. Shaman tree, forgive our trespass. I can't help but feel a pang of pride as Rion's sense of respect comes out. Did not give this aspect to him like any rowdy pup ought to. He learned it himself, lesson by lesson. Even when he catches my thought, his concentration does not falter. We reach the bottom of the staircase, the walls around us widen, and at last we reach the crypt. A large room, most of it consumed by the central mass of the shaman's tree roots. And, resting against them, embraced by it, venerable ancestors. They slumber amongst the roots, content in the knowledge that the shaman tree accepted their earthly remains. All they had, all they once were, all that made them was entrusted to this quiet, faithful colossus. Theirs was a death beyond fear, for they knew the eye inside them would be absorbed and diluted by the shaman tree. Before them we kneel. I stretch out my right arm while Rion mimics the motion with his left. Grant us the strength that once helped you through this treacherous valley. The wisdom with which you led our people. The resolve to survive against all odds. Ancestors, please grant us a sign. Point us to the fruitful path. Rion's voice cracks and it leaks through my own. Please, I beg of you. Our people suffer under the hands of a cruel lord, and now they threaten us with yet greater violence. Once more he catches glimpses as all the pieces on the board. The weight of his actions hits once more, and his mind overflows with emotion. A barrage of visions born of fear, uncertainty, pain, and loss. It's a flood in the truest sense. My thoughts are overwhelmed by the intensity of it all. My senses become muffled, as if I was diving into a deep, turbulent river. I lose track of my own body, of my thoughts, but despite the chaos, there's a hidden logic in this whirlpool. Even with my eyes closed, even with all my senses muffled, I know how to navigate it. I relax, breathe in, and allow the current to carry me. When I open my eyes, I find myself hunched over, staring at the root-covered floor. My mouth moves on its own. It's my fault. I should have thought it through. For a moment, our thoughts truly come together and we see it. Renai aflame, the streets bathed in blood, with the 6 silhouettes of the Inquisitors moving across the streets. Every harrowing emotion, every curse and wail, it all leaps out and bites onto us, maims the landscape of our mind. It is always like this. For a split second as we hand control to each other, our thoughts and emotions mingle. We think as one, but it can never last. What is done cannot be undone. And that knowledge stains Rion's mind. Bile rises to his throat and his voice flows with regret like I've never felt before. This is my fault. He falters. His trunk leans down as though about to topple, but I will not allow it. Through sheer force of will, I wrench back control of our arm and grab our throat. Even if I do not control our mouth, I whisper in his ear. Peace, brother. You are a proud wolf of Renai, a true heir. You will not prostrate yourself in such a way. I pull his gaze to the remains of our predecessors. Our ancestors would not allow it. Now, dry your tears and pray with me. From the eye clutches you have devoured us, most esteemed, twice-wizened ancestors. The wolves of Renai forget, O shamans of our duties, our rights, our old burden. Our darkest restless nights go without sleep, and frightful nightmares threaten to slip through. Venerable ancestors of Renai, many branched shamans touched by the eye, guide our people to one fruitful path. And yet, no guidance comes. 100 times we pray until the last shreds of sunlight coming from the hallway behind us disappears. The ancestors do not seem fit to respond. While Rion's voice falters and cracks, I look up at their remains, to their hollow eye sockets, their distant gaze. Oh, venerable shamans, have you too abandoned us? Are we left with no guidance, no accomplice, no respite even in our people's bosom? Brother of mine soul, branch of our tree. I continue holding Rion, praying even as his voice fails him and breaks into a sob. Words come to me, vivid and burning, each overflowing with purpose as if it has been taught to me long ago. Whoever may hear my oath. It wells up inside me, a kind of fire, all at once new and familiar, belonging to us both, but mine first and foremost. Oh, vile sickness-stricken runt, day and night I will hunt. Wherever you go, my hand will bring you low. However you hide, you'll find me by your side. Lord Runt, what is yours by right, I'll bring without respite. Our fearsome campaign. In nightmares we shall remain. We, orphan wolves of Renai. Stay safe, have a good night, and I will see you all tomorrow.